Rink Vancouver. Pre-game, post-game, every game presented by Bodog. From sports odds to free casino games, make a play. Bodog.net. Wadden and JPat back once again with another edition of the pregame as the Canucks get their first look at the Dallas Stars. JPat, and oh yeah, this Stars team, they're pretty good.
This is going to be the first time the Canucks see the Stars, as you mentioned. This is the last team that the Vancouver Canucks have yet to face this year. So you could scratch that off the list. And Andrew, you're going to be seeing Stars a fair bit here. 3 of the next 13 Vancouver Canuck games are against this Dallas hockey club. And as you mentioned, they've got designs on top spot in their division, maybe top spot in the Western Conference. So I know the Canucks are the best team in the National Hockey League on Saturday in Boston, but this Dallas team is another team that means business, and they're going to be a handful for the Canucks tonight.
Let's get to the lineup change, which is presented by Delaney's OK Tire out there on Fraser Highway in Langley. Looks like we're going to get our first look at Kravtsov and maybe Thatcher Demko returning.
Yeah, there's no confirmation yet, so we'll have to wait until closer to game time. But Thatcher Demko on the road trip, now he'd have to be activated. He started the day on injured reserve where he's been for the last 35 games. But he is on this trip, and so there is some suggestions that maybe we're going to see Thatcher Demko return to the net for the first time since December the 1st. But Vitaly Kravtsov is expected to make his Canuck debut. Sounds like he's going to play on a little bit of a makeshift line with Jack Studnicka and Brock Besser. Now, of course, this is all facilitated by the fact that JT Miller, we learned earlier today, not on the road trip and now out at least a week. The Canucks are saying perhaps week to week. Of course, this is trade deadline week, so there's a lot of noise going on around JT Miller as there has been for parts of the last couple of seasons. But we do know that he's not going to play tonight, nor will Ethan Bear, who took that puck in the face the other night, left after his first shift against the Boston Bruins. Noah Juulsen's been called up from Abbotsford, so all kinds of moving parts in the Vancouver Canuck lineup, and we'll have to see what kind of patchwork job Rick Tocchet can do. But yes, does look like Kravtsov is going to get a look for the first time here after the trade on Saturday.
Canucks held their own against the NHL's top team, but as you mentioned, the Stars are right up there as well.
Yeah, but I think the Canucks can draw on the way that they played the last 2 periods, at the very least, against the Boston Bruins. They were dominated in the first, and the Bruins jumped out to that 2-0 lead. But after that, I thought the Canucks settled in. And really, when you look at some of the recent scores, they held Boston to 2 goals before Linus Ullmark decided to score the empty netter. I know it was 3-1 final, but 2 goals before the goalie goal, 2 goals in St. Louis, 2 goals against Philadelphia recently. So I do think that Rick Tocchet is starting to see some of this structure that we've spent so much of the season talking about. The other part of that is, oh yeah, they've been getting some saves that they didn't get earlier in the season. Whatever the case, they are holding their opponents down when it comes to offensive opportunities and ultimately the goals that are being scored against the Vancouver Canucks. But yeah, another good test against a really good Dallas team tonight.
Yeah, and Rick Tocchet's Stars looked tired. At least that's what the head coach said. Didn't really get time to get a lot of rest here, did they, with this one stop over in Dallas?
Right. So they were in St. Louis Thursday. They had to fly home. They played Boston on Saturday, Sunday, a travel day. And here they are down in Big D. So, yeah, no rest for the weary here and now. Look, with JT Miller out of the lineup, Elias Pettersson, you know that he's going to be leaned on along with Kuzmenko, Anthony Beauvillier. Those guys are going to have to play an awful lot. And we've seen Quinn Hughes. They've been leaning on him a ton. 2 30-minute nights, and I don't know if it was a break, but he played 28 against the Bruins the other night. So this is a tough Dallas team that it plays the same way that the Boston Bruins want to play. Of course, the Bruins are pulling away from everybody in the National Hockey League, but this is a Dallas team that can score, but they also know how to defend. And then behind their defense, they've got Jake Ottinger, who is putting up ridiculous numbers. He's got a .926 save percentage, a 2.23 goals against average. So even if the Canucks are able to break down the Stars a little bit, that last line of defense, the goaltender, Jake Ottinger, is having a terrific season for the Stars.
Let's talk about those Dallas Stars. They got a huge win over Vegas over the weekend.
Yeah, they've been listing a little bit. They had lost 5 in a row coming into that game. Now, this is a battle of division leaders in the Western Conference, and the Stars needed a final minute goal in regulation to tie. They forced it to overtime. Nothing settled there. They did win it in a shootout, however, so they got the bonus point, and they creep a little closer to the Vegas Golden Knights atop the Western Conference standings. But Dallas just needed something to go its way. Again, they're in all these close games. They play a ton of tight ones, but they hadn't been falling their way. They were able to get the tying goal and ultimately win it in a shootout against the Knights. So we'll see if that gives them a little bit of a confidence boost. Not that they need a confidence boost because they're having a nice season, but we'll see if that gets them back on track and if they can build on that against the Canucks.
You talk about tight games for Dallas, 7 of their last 11 games in OT.
Yeah, only Carolina in the National Hockey League has been to overtime more than the Dallas Stars. And you know how we joke sometimes about it being a 3-2 league, or at least it has been in recent years. Maybe not so much this year because goals are up around the National Hockey League. But of those 7 games that have gone to overtime recently, 6 of them have ended in a 3-2 final. So, you know, it feels like the Stars are in playoff mode already because things tighten up down the stretch and into the postseason. And we know that the Stars are going to be a playoff team. It's just a question of seeding ultimately and where they finish. But they play all these tight 1-goal games, and that should serve them well when they start playing for keeps a little later on here in the spring.
Don't think too many people picked Dallas to win the Central or even the Western Conference this year, JPat, but here we are.
Yeah, and as I said, they're atop the division for the time being, but listen closely. You can hear Colorado's footsteps now. The Avs starting to put it together. They look good on the weekend, thumping the Calgary Flames. Winnipeg has fallen off the pace a little bit. Minnesota is still in the mix. I mean, things are bunched up in the Central, but it goes beyond that because this Dallas team has a legitimate shot of being the best in the West and being that top seed. Wins over Vegas certainly go, a long way to helping them in terms of that cause. So the win the other night, as I said, they pick up the bonus point. T-Mobile Arena, they creep within 2 points of the Golden Knights for top spot in the Western Conference, and they're going to want to add to their total against the Canucks this evening.
And Jason Robertson has emerged as a star for the Stars.
Yeah, and really did last year with 41 goals, but he certainly is on pace to break that number and set a new career high. He's at 35 goals, 38 assists, so he comes into this game with 73 points. He's separated himself from the rest of his team. There's no doubt that there's been a changing of the guard down there in Big D. It used to be Ben and Seguin. Those guys are still pulling their own weight and helping out, but now in a support role. And now you've got Jason Robertson, who is the star on the Dallas Stars, and he's on the top line with Rope Hins and Joe Pavelski, and they are going to give the Vancouver Canucks all they can handle as this game unfolds. And again, the Canucks are going to see a fair bit of this group here over the next month or so.
You rattled off some of the stats there for Jason Robertson. What's the stat that stands out tonight for you? And of course, it's presented by Jason Hominick at jason.mortgage.
Yeah, I mean, on the surface, this may sound kind of funny, but the stat that stands out to me is that Quinn Hughes hasn't picked up a point in his last 2 games. Now, this isn't a crisis. Nobody should be alarmed. The stat, though, or the part of the stat that stands out to me is 2 games without a point is the longest Quinn Hughes has gone all season. And it hasn't happened since January 5th and January the 8th. So almost 2 months. And it just speaks to his consistency, his ability to pick up points. Even when the Canucks aren't playing particularly well, he has been productive. But I think it's also instructive to note that the amount that he's played here of late, I do think it's too much ultimately. And these are desperate times. And when you look at Ethan Bear out of the lineup and OEL out of the lineup and the Canucks holding Luke Shen out of the lineup, somebody's got to play. And so that somebody continues to be Quinn Hughes. But when you're asking him to play 30 minutes a night, I'm not sure that that lends itself to him being at his very best, at peak Quinn Hughes. So I don't know if they're going to be able to lower his ice time here in the absence of those other guys. But I do think a little less might be a little bit more when it comes to Quinn Hughes, but 2 games without a point for Quinn Hughes, that jumps off the page just because we haven't seen it happen very often. And the stat that stands out, a presentation of Jason Hominick at jason.mortgage.
Let's get to my Bodog Best Bet. I'm looking to buck a trend here for the Vancouver Canucks, JPat. I got both teams scoring in the first period at plus 160. We know the Canucks, they love to bleed goals to any team, but they haven't been scoring much in the first 20 minutes as of late. I think they get it done tonight. Both teams to score, and look at that value. Plus 160, take it to the bank.
Yeah, and this may be a challenge when we talk about no JT Miller. Certainly he would be a candidate to open the scoring or at least score an early goal for the Vancouver Canucks. And you're right, they were down 2-0 in Nashville, down 2-0 in St. Louis, down 2-0 in the first period the other night against the Boston Bruins. So starts haven't been great. The Canucks have been playing catch-up. They push hard when they are trailing in these games, but it would be nice to see them get out in front and grab a lead in one of these games. Forget a 2-0 lead, just get a lead. They haven't done a lot of that lately, but we'll see how things unfold here tonight. Maybe this is a night where Elias Pettersson, as he did in St. Louis last week, maybe he puts the Canucks on his back, or hey, maybe Vitaly Kravtsov rises to the challenge and makes an impression in his Canuck debut. So there are opportunity out there, certainly, but I do think the Canucks are going to be challenged to score goals, missing as many bodies as they are in the lineup right now.
Maybe the new guy will get this honor. Who tonight is going to do something for the Canucks in this game?
Yeah, I don't want to go too deep with this guy, and we'll take the capital letters off, do something. Small d, small s, but 2 games as a Vancouver Canuck, Aatu Räty really hasn't done a lot, and he hasn't played an awful lot. So I don't want to be hypercritical about his game, but again, JT Miller comes out of the lineup. Somebody's got to play center ice, and when you think of Elias Pettersson and then where do the dominoes fall, it sounds like Studnicka's going to get an opportunity to play in the middle, but I would think that Aatu Räty will remain at center ice as well. Nils Amon probably centering that 4th line as he has for most of his first year here in the National Hockey League. But Räty's the guy. I just want to see some flashes, and I really haven't seen much of that. So I'll be watching him closely. And again, in the absence of other players, somebody needs to step up. So maybe Aatu Räty can do something to help the Vancouver Canucks.
Well, let's see if the Canucks can step up against one of the NHL's top teams as a short trip down to Dallas for a one-and-done with the Stars. This has been another edition of the Rink Wide Vancouver podcast presented by Bodog. For Jeff Patterson, I'm Andrew Wadden. Remember, Rink Wide is the show that always scores.